The moment Austin Gray's hand clasped Cora's, he realized handshakes could arouse alien girls. Aggressively. The human diplomat's eyes widened as the Nausicaan female before him shuddered violently, a guttural moan escaping her lips. The conference room on Epsilon 9 space station fell silent, all eyes fixed on the spectacle unfolding at the center of the chamber. Austin's mind raced. This was supposed to be a routine first contact meeting, a chance to secure a vital dilithium trade agreement for Earth's dwindling supplies. Now it teetered on the brink of disaster. Cora, the lead Nausicaan negotiator, towered over him, her muscular frame trembling, yellow eyes dilated with unmistakable arousal. The other Nausicaan delegates, all male, erupted in a cacophony of angry shouts, their ridged foreheads furrowed with rage, as they interpreted the handshake as a deliberate provocation, an insult to their culture, and a violation of Cora's person. "Arrest him," one of the male Nausicans demanded, pointing an accusing finger at Austin. "This human has assaulted our chief negotiator." Station security, a mix of humans and other alien races, moved swiftly. Two officers grabbed Austin's arms, restraining him as he protested his innocence. "Wait! I didn't mean to. It was just a handshake." Ambassador Elena Reeves, leader of the human delegation, stepped forward, her face a mask of diplomatic calm despite the chaos. "Gentlemen, please, there's been a misunderstanding. The handshake is a traditional Earth greeting, nothing more." Her words fell on deaf ears. The Nausicaan delegates continued to shout, their voices growing louder and more hostile with each passing second. Cora remained silent, her chest heaving as she struggled to regain her composure. As security began to lead Austin away, the gravity of the situation hit him. This wasn't just about his fate. The entire future of human-Nausicaan relations hung in the balance. The dilithium trade agreement, Earth's lifeline to the stars, was slipping away with each step. Austin's mind raced, searching for a solution. He locked eyes with Ambassador Reeves, silently pleading for help. She nodded, understanding the unspoken message. As Austin was escorted out of the room, he heard her voice, steady and determined, addressing the Nausicaan delegation. "Honored representatives of Nausicaa, I implore you to hear us out. What you've witnessed was an unfortunate cultural misunderstanding, not a deliberate act." The rest of her words faded as the doors slid shut behind Austin. The corridor outside was a blur of activity, station personnel reacting to the commotion. Austin barely noticed, his thoughts consumed by the implications of what had just transpired. If a simple handshake could provoke such an intense reaction in Nausicaan females, what did that mean for future interactions? Could this accidental discovery be turned to Earth's advantage somehow? The holding cell door hissed open, and Austin was ushered inside. As it closed behind him, he sank onto the narrow bunk, head in his hands. Outside, he could hear the muffled sounds of continued uproar. The trade negotiations were in shambles, Earth's supply of dilithium hanging by a thread, and he was at the center of it all. In that moment, trapped in a cell on a neutral space station, Austin Gray realized that the fate of human-Nausicaan relations, and possibly the future of Earth itself, now rested on the unexpected power of a handshake. Austin's head snapped up as the holding cell door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Ambassador Elena Reeves stood in the doorway, her expression a mix of concern and dedication. "Austin, we may have a way out of this mess," she said, her voice low and urgent. "But I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" He nodded, rising from the bunk. "Of course, Ambassador. What's the plan?" As they hurried through the station's corridors, Reeves explained the situation. She had convinced the station's commander, an Andorian named Thraz, to allow a controlled experiment to prove the unintentional nature of the handshake incident. "We're going to recreate the handshake under controlled conditions," Reeves said as they approached a secure conference room. "Dr. Liana Chen, our station's xenobiologist, will be overseeing the proceedings." Austin's stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. "And the Nausicans? They've agreed to this?" Reeves nodded. Cora insisted on participating. She's curious about what happened. The conference room door opened, revealing a tense scene. The Nausicaan delegation stood on one side, their ridged foreheads furrowed in barely held back anger. Cora stood slightly apart from her male colleagues, her yellow eyes fixed on Austin as he entered. Commander Thraz, his antennae twitching with alertness, addressed the room. "We will proceed with the experiment as agreed. Dr. Chen, please explain the protocol." Dr. Chen, a petite woman with a shock of silver hair, stepped forward. "We'll establish a baseline first. Mr. Gray will shake hands with various non-Nausicaan aliens. Then, we'll proceed to a handshake with Cora. Sensors will monitor physiological responses throughout." The next few minutes were a blur of handshakes. Austin's palm met the cool blue skin of an Andorian, the rough hide of a Tellarite, and the warm, dry hand of a Vulcan. Each interaction was unremarkable, eliciting no unusual response. Then came the moment of truth. Austin approached Cora, his heart pounding. He extended his hand and she reached out to meet it. The instant their palms touched, Cora's reaction was explosive. Her pupils dilated until her eyes were nearly black, her chest heaving with rapid breaths. A deep purple flush spread across her skin as she let out a low, guttural moan that sent shivers down Austin's spine. The male Nausicaans erupted in angry shouts, but Dr. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Gentlemen, please look at the data." All eyes turned to the display screens. Dr. Chen pointed to various charts and graphs, her words tumbling out in a rush of scientific jargon. The human skin is producing a unique combination of pheromones and bioelectric fields. When in contact with Nausicaan skin, it triggers an intense mating response in females. It's completely involuntary, not something humans can control or even knew about until now. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. The male Nausicaans huddled together, speaking in low, urgent tones. Cora remained apart, her gaze locked on Austin with an intensity that made him both uncomfortable and strangely exhilarated. Ambassador Reeves seized the moment. "Gentlemen, I believe this discovery presents a unique opportunity for both our species. Perhaps we could discuss how this might impact future relations between humans and Nausicaans." The lead male Nausicaan, his initial anger now tempered with curiosity, nodded slowly. "Yes, perhaps we should." As the diplomats began to discuss the broader implications, Austin found himself edging towards Cora. The sexual tension between them was palpable, a nearly visible current in the air. I'm sorry about all this," Austin said, his voice low. "I had no idea." Cora's yellow eyes bored into him. "No apology necessary, human. This is fascinating. We should work closely together to better understand this phenomenon." Austin swallowed hard, both thrilled and terrified by the prospect. "I agree. It's important for both our species." Their conversation was interrupted by Ambassador Reeves. "Austin, a word?" She pulled him aside, her expression grave but hopeful. "I've proposed that you join the Nausicaan delegation as a cultural liaison. It would allow for further study of the handshake phenomenon and put you in a position to negotiate for the dilithium we need." Austin's mind reeled. "Me? But I'm not a trained diplomat. You're the key to this whole situation," Reeves cut him off. "The Nausicaans are intrigued by the potential benefits of closer relations with humans. Your presence could make all the difference." Austin glanced back at Cora, who was watching their interaction intently. He thought of Earth's desperate need for dilithium, of the potential for peace between their species, and of the strange electric connection he felt with the Nausicaan woman. "All right," he said, squaring his shoulders. "I'll do it." As the various parties began to disperse, discussing the new developments in excited tones, Austin found himself alone with Cora once more. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. "So," Cora said, her voice a low rumble that sent shivers down Austin's spine, "it seems we'll be working together quite closely." Austin nodded, his mouth suddenly dry. "Yes, it seems we will." As they stood there, the promise of unexplored territory stretching out before them, Austin realized that his life, and potentially the future of human-Nausicaan relations, had been irrevocably changed by a simple handshake. As Austin and Cora stood together, the weight of their newfound connection hanging between them, Ambassador Reeves approached with a determined stride. "Austin, we need to prepare you for what's ahead," she said, her voice low and urgent. "The Nausicaans have agreed to include you in their delegation, but there's much work to be done." Over the next week, Austin's world became a whirlwind of intensive cultural training. He spent hours each day with Dr. Chen and a team of xenoanthropologists, absorbing everything he could about Nausicaan society. The harsh consonants of their language rolled off his tongue with increasing ease as he practiced basic phrases and etiquette. During breaks in his studies, Austin caught glimpses of the ongoing preliminary trade negotiations. He overheard snatches of conversation about dilithium quotas and exchange rates, reminding him of the high stakes riding on his unusual position. As his training progressed, Dr. Chen continued her research into the handshake phenomenon. Austin sat through countless scans and tests, electrodes dotting his skin as the xenobiologist collected data. On the fifth day of experiments, Dr. Chen called Austin and Ambassador Reeves to her lab. Her eyes gleamed with excitement as she pulled up a holographic display of her findings. "It's not just handshakes," she explained, pointing to a complex array of bioelectric readings. Any skin-to-skin contact between human males and Nausicaan females triggers the response. The effect seems to be caused by a unique interaction between human pheromones and Nausicaan physiology. Austin's stomach tightened as he processed this information. "So I'll need to be careful about any physical contact?" Ambassador Reeves nodded gravely. "This complicates things, but it doesn't change our objective. We need that dilithium deal, Austin. Earth is counting on us." The day of Austin's formal introduction to the Nausicaan delegation arrived all too soon. He stood before a mirror in his quarters, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of traditional Nausicaan attire. The leather-like material clung to his frame, accentuating his human physique in a way that made him feel both powerful and vulnerable. As he entered the conference room, 5 pairs of yellow eyes locked onto him. Cora stood at the head of the group, her presence commanding as always. Beside her were 3 male Nausicaans, their ridged foreheads furrowed in varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. A female Nausicaan, her build more lithe than Cora's, but no less intimidating, stood slightly apart from the others. Cora stepped forward, her voice a low rumble. "Austin Gray, we welcome you to our delegation. Allow me to introduce my colleagues. This is Grax, Thorn, and Krell," she said, indicating each of the males in turn, "and our security officer, Zira." Austin bowed his head in greeting, careful to keep his hands clasped behind his back. "I'm honored to be here. Thank you for this opportunity." Grax, the largest of the male Nausicaans, snorted derisively. "This is a mistake. How can we trust a human to represent our interests?" Cora's eyes flashed dangerously. "Grax, we've discussed this. The human's presence offers unique advantages in our negotiations with Earth." The tension in the room was palpable as Grax and Cora locked eyes, engaged in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Grax looked away, his posture stiff with awe-inspiring anger. As the meeting progressed, Austin found himself walking a precarious line. He contributed insights into human negotiation styles and Earth's desperate need for dilithium, all while hyper-aware of his every movement. The slightest accidental brush against Cora or Zira could spark an incident. Despite the challenges, Austin's unique perspective began to sway the negotiations in Earth's favor. He noticed the approving nods from Ambassador Reeves, who observed from the sidelines. However, with each small victory, Grax's scowl deepened. Days blurred together in a haze of meetings and strategy sessions. Austin and Cora often found themselves working late into the night, poring over trade agreements and cultural exchange proposals. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, their bodies gravitating towards each other even as they maintained a careful distance. One evening, as Austin hurried through a crowded corridor after a particularly grueling negotiation session, disaster struck. He stumbled, his balance thrown off by a passing Tellarite. As he righted himself, his arm brushed against Zira, who had been walking nearby. The effect was immediate and intense. Zira's eyes widened, her breath coming in short gasps as she pressed herself against the wall. Onlookers stared in shock as the normally composed security officer visibly struggled to regain control. Austin backed away, his heart pounding. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean—" But the damage was done. Within hours, word of the incident had spread through both delegations. The next morning, as Austin entered the conference room, Grax was waiting for him. "You!" the Nausicaan snarled, advancing on Austin with clenched fists. "You did that on purpose. You're trying to manipulate us through our females." Austin raised his hands, palms out. "No, it was an accident. I would never—" Grax didn't let him finish. With a roar of rage, he lunged forward, his massive fist connecting with Austin's jaw. Pain exploded through Austin's head as he staggered backward, tasting blood. The room erupted into chaos. Station security officers rushed in, struggling to separate the two. Austin caught a glimpse of Cora's face, a mix of concern and fury etched into her features, before he was pulled away. Hours later, Austin sat in the station's medical bay, holding an ice pack to his swollen jaw. The doors hissed open, revealing Cora. She entered cautiously, her eyes scanning his injuries. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. Austin nodded, wincing at the movement. "I've been better. Cora, I swear I didn't mean for any of this to happen." She moved closer, stopping just short of touching distance. "I believe you, Austin, but this incident has complicated things. The negotiations—" The door slid open again, cutting her off. Dr. Chen burst in, her silver hair disheveled and her eyes bright with a manic energy Austin had come to associate with scientific breakthrough. "I have an idea," she announced, looking between Austin and Cora. "A way to potentially salvage this situation and push our understanding of human-Nausicaan compatibility even further." Austin sat up straighter, ignoring the throbbing in his jaw. "What kind of idea?" Dr. Chen's expression was a mix of excitement and apprehension. "A controlled experiment to test the full extent of the physiological effects between your species, but it would be risky, potentially volatile." Cora's yellow eyes locked with Austin's. In that moment, he saw a reflection of his own mix of fear and curiosity. The air in the room seemed to thicken as they contemplated the possibilities. "What exactly did you have in mind, Doctor?" Cora asked, her voice low and intense. As Dr. Chen began to outline her proposal, Austin realized they were standing on the edge of a precipice. Their decision could either salvage the negotiations and open up unprecedented avenues of cooperation between their species, or it could plunge them into a diplomatic nightmare with far-reaching consequences. The weight of two worlds rested on their shoulders as they listened to Dr. Chen's plan, the future of human-Nausicaan relations hanging in the balance. Balance. The gravity of the situation greatly troubled on Austin as he considered Dr. Chen's proposal. "A controlled experiment?" Austin echoed, his voice a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "To test the full extent of our compatibility?" Cora's yellow eyes narrowed, her gaze intense as she studied Dr. Chen. "Explain further, Doctor. What exactly would this entail?" Dr. Chen took a deep breath, her excitement palpable. "I propose we set up a secure laboratory here on Epsilon 9. We'll conduct a series of tests to measure the physiological effects of human-Nausicaan contact under controlled conditions. With your consent, of course," she added, looking between Austin and Cora. Austin's heart raced at the implications. He glanced at Cora, searching her face for any hint of her thoughts. To his surprise, he saw a flicker of interest in her eyes. "I volunteer," Cora said suddenly, her voice firm. "This could provide invaluable data for both our species." Austin nodded, ignoring the twinge of pain in his jaw. "I'm in too. If it can help salvage the negotiations and prevent further misunderstandings, it's worth the risk." Dr. Chen clapped her hands together. "Excellent. I'll begin preparations immediately. We'll need to get approval from the station's ethical committee, of course, but I don't foresee any issues given the potential benefits." Over the next few days, Epsilon 9 buzzed with activity as Dr. Chen's team set up the laboratory. Austin underwent a battery of preliminary tests, electrodes attached to his skin as various scanners hummed and beeped around him. As he lay on the examination table, Austin's mind wandered to Cora. Their interactions had been strictly professional since the incident with Grax, but he couldn't shake the memory of the electricity that sparked between them with every accidental brush of skin. On the day of the first official experiment, Austin arrived at the lab to find Cora already there, her tall frame draped in a medical gown. Dr. Chen bustled about, making final adjustments to her equipment. "Ah, Austin, good," Dr. Chen said, gesturing him towards a second examination table. We'll start with simple skin-to-skin contact and gradually increase the duration and area of contact. Are you both ready? Austin and Cora exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. They nodded in unison. "Let's begin," Dr. Chen announced, activating her scanners. Austin extended his hand, palm up. Cora reached out, her fingers hovering just above his skin. The air seemed to crackle with anticipation. As their palms met, Austin felt a jolt of energy surge through him. Cora's sharp intake of breath told him she felt it too. On the monitors surrounding them, readings spiked dramatically. "Fascinating," Dr. Chen exclaimed, her eyes darting between her subjects and the data streaming across her screens. "Cora, your hormone levels are off the charts. Austin, your neural activity is unlike anything I've seen before." They progressed through a series of controlled touches, each contact sending waves of sensation through Austin's body. He found himself hyper-aware of Cora's presence, the scent of her skin, the sound of her breathing. As the experiments continued over the following days, Austin noticed changes in Cora. Her movements became more fluid, her reflexes sharper. During one session, she accidentally crushed a metal instrument in her hand, her strength apparently enhanced by prolonged contact with Austin. On the 5th day of experiments, Dr. Chen introduced a new variable. "Zira has agreed to participate as a secondary subject," she explained, gesturing to the Nausicaan security officer who stood nervously at the edge of the lab. Austin approached Zira cautiously, extending his hand. Their fingers brushed briefly, and Zira gasped, her eyes widening. The reaction was similar to Cora's, but noticeably less intense. "Interesting," Dr. Chen muttered, furiously taking notes. "It seems the strength of the reaction varies between individuals. Cora, your responses are consistently stronger than Zira's." As the days passed, Austin found it increasingly difficult to maintain his professional detachment. Each touch, each shared glance with Cora seemed to deepen their connection. He caught himself staring at her during breaks, admiring the way the lab lights played across her ridged forehead. One evening, as they prepared for another round of tests, Cora approached Austin. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "Austin, I find myself thinking of you even when we're not in the lab. Is this part of the experiment or something more?" Austin's heart raced. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could form the words, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the lab in an eerie glow. "Attention, all personnel!" Commander Thraz's voice echoed over the intercom. "A Nausicaan battlecruiser has just dropped out of warp. All non-essential personnel, evacuate to secure areas immediately." Austin and Cora locked eyes, the unfinished conversation hanging between them. In that moment, they both realized that their personal feelings would have to wait. The consequences of their experiment had just escalated far beyond the confines of the lab, threatening the delicate peace between their species. As chaos erupted around them, Austin's mind raced. How had news of the experiment leaked? What would this mean for the negotiations? And most importantly, how could they prevent this situation from spiraling into interstellar conflict? With the station on high alert and a hostile Nausicaan ship looming outside, Austin knew that the next few hours would be crucial. The future of human-Nausicaan relations now balanced on a knife's edge, and he and Cora were at the very center of the storm. Storm. The future of human-Nausicaan relations now balanced on a knife's edge, and he and Cora were at the very center of the crisis. Austin's mind raced as he processed the implications of the Nausicaan battlecruiser's arrival. He turned to Dr. Chen, who was already tapping furiously at her console. "Doctor, we need to act fast," he said, his voice urgent. "This experiment might be our only chance to prevent a diplomatic disaster." Dr. Chen nodded, her eyes never leaving the screen. "I'm already compiling our data. We need to convince Commander Thraz to let us continue." As if on cue, the lab doors hissed open, revealing the imposing figure of Commander Thraz. The Andorian's antennae twitched with agitation as he surveyed the scene. "What in the name of the ice caves is going on here?" he demanded. "We have a Nausicaan warship breathing down our necks, and you're still playing with your sensors?" Austin stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. "Commander, I know this looks bad, but our research might be the key to defusing this situation. We just need a little more time. Thras's antennae flattened against his head. Time is the one thing we don't have, human. That ship out there is demanding the return of their delegation, or they'll open fire. Cora moved to stand beside Austin, her presence a steady warmth at his side. Commander, I vouch for the importance of this work. If we can demonstrate the potential benefits of human-Nausicaan interaction, it could change everything. The commander's eyes darted between them, clearly weighing his options. After a tense moment, he let out a resigned sigh. You have 1 hour. Make it count. As Thras turned to leave, barking orders into his communicator, Austin felt a surge of drive. He locked eyes with Cora, seeing his own mix of fear and drive mirrored in her gaze. We can do this, he said softly. Cora nodded, her ridged brow furrowing with concentration. We must. The alternative is unthinkable. Dr. Chen's voice cut through their moment of connection. If we're going to do this, we need to move now. I'm setting up the final stage of the experiment. The lab erupted into a flurry of activity. Technicians rushed to recalibrate equipment, while Dr. Chen directed the setup of a new, transparent chamber in the center of the room. Austin and Cora underwent hurried medical checks, their vital signs carefully monitored for any signs of stress or fatigue. As they prepared, Austin caught snippets of urgent communications echoing through the station. Ambassador Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom, engaged in tense negotiations with Earth's government. In the background, the low hum of the station's shields activating sent a shiver down Austin's spine. With minutes to spare, Austin and Cora stood before the entrance to the specially designed chamber. The transparent walls gleamed under the harsh lab lights, a silent promise of revelations to come. Dr. Chen approached them, her face a mask of professional calm, belied by the tension in her shoulders. Remember, we'll be monitoring every aspect of your interaction. If at any point you feel overwhelmed or in danger, signal immediately and we'll abort. Austin nodded, his throat suddenly dry. He turned to Cora, drinking in the sight of her. Her yellow eyes met his, a whirlpool of emotions swirling in their depths. Ready? He asked, extending his hand. Cora's fingers intertwined with his, her grip firm and reassuring. Together, she replied. As they stepped into the chamber, Austin felt the weight of two worlds pressing down upon them. The hiss of the airlock sealing behind them seemed to cut them off from the chaos outside, leaving them in a bubble of anticipation. They stood facing each other, barely a breath apart. Austin could feel the heat radiating from Cora's skin, smell the faint, alien scent that was uniquely hers. His heart pounded in his chest, a rhythm echoed by the beeping of the monitoring equipment surrounding them. Initiating final phase, Dr. Chen's voice came through the speakers, slightly distorted. Commencing in 3, 2, 1. Austin reached out, his fingers brushing against Cora's arm. The effect was immediate and intense. A jolt of energy surged through him, setting every nerve ending alight. He gasped, his vision blurring for a moment before sharpening with startling clarity. Cora's reaction was equally powerful. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating, as she let out a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through Austin's bones. Her grip on his hand tightened, strength far beyond human norms evident in her grasp. As their contact deepened, Austin became aware of a strange doubling of his senses. He could feel the smooth floor beneath his feet, but also a phantom sensation of Cora's weight shifting on her toes. The sterile scent of the lab mingled with a heady, musky aroma he somehow knew was Cora's natural scent. Outside the chamber, Dr. Chen's team worked feverishly, analyzing the flood of data pouring in from their sensors. Exclamations of surprise and wonder filled the air as they witnessed the unprecedented changes occurring in both human and Nausicaan physiology. Within the chamber, Austin and Cora moved as if in a trance, their bodies drawing closer without conscious thought. Their foreheads touched, and suddenly Austin found himself awash in a sea of alien emotions. Cora's fierce pride, her burning curiosity, her deep-seated fears, all washed over him in a torrent of sensation. Time seemed to lose all meaning as they stood locked in their strange communion. Austin felt stronger, more alive than he ever had before. His senses sharpened to a painful degree, allowing him to pick up minute details he'd never noticed. The faint hum of the station's life support systems, the subtle shifts in air pressure as people moved about the lab. Cora, too, was changing. Her movements became more fluid, more graceful. When she opened her eyes to meet Austin's gaze, he saw a new depth of understanding there, a bridge forming between their vastly different minds. As the experiment reached its climax, a shimmering aura seemed to form around them, visible even to the naked eye. Dr. Chen's voice, thick with awe, filtered through the speakers. Incredible. We're detecting a temporary biochemical bond. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Austin barely registered the words, too caught up in the whirlwind of shared experiences flooding his consciousness. In that moment, he understood Cora in a way that transcended language or culture. He saw the vastness of space through her eyes, felt the primal pull of her warrior heritage, tasted the complex flavors of her homeworld's cuisine. As the effects of the interaction began to subside, Austin and Cora slowly separated, both gasping for breath. They stared at each other, a new understanding passing between them. Outside the chamber, the lab had fallen into a hushed silence. Dr. Chen's team worked silently, processing the mountain of data they had collected. On the main view screen, Ambassador Reeves's face appeared, his expression a mix of hope and trepidation. "Dr. Chen," he said, his voice tight with controlled excitement, "I need your preliminary findings immediately. The Nausicaan commander is demanding proof of our claims." As the lab burst into renewed activity, Austin and Cora emerged from the chamber on unsteady feet. They leaned on each other for support, both physically and emotionally drained from the intensity of their experience. Austin looked up to see all eyes in the room fixed upon them. In that moment, he realized that their actions had set in motion events that would reshape the future of both their species. The next few hours would determine whether their groundbreaking connection would lead to a new era of cooperation or plunge their worlds into conflict. With a deep breath, Austin straightened his shoulders and prepared to face the storm they had unleashed. Whatever came next, he knew that he and Cora would face it together, their bond forged in the crucible of this extraordinary experiment. Experiment. As Austin steadied himself, the lab erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the commotion. "Preliminary results are extraordinary. Ambassador Reeves, I'm transmitting the data now." The ambassador's face on the console lit up with cautious optimism. "Excellent work, Dr. Chen. I'll use this in our negotiations immediately." As the implications of their experiment sank in, Epsilon 9 transformed into a hub of frenzied activity. The corridors buzzed with excitement and tension as news of the breakthrough spread. Austin and Cora found themselves at the epicenter of a scientific and diplomatic whirlwind. Ambassador Reeves wasted no time capitalizing on the momentum. Within hours, he had initiated a series of high-level talks with both the Nausicaan delegation on the station and Commander Krivak's battlecruiser. The focus quickly shifted to the potential for a groundbreaking human-Nausicaan alliance, with the dilithium trade agreement as its foundation. Meanwhile, Austin and Cora were whisked away to the medical bay for extensive examinations. Dr. Chen's team worked tirelessly, running scan after scan as they sought to understand the full extent of the changes wrought by the experiment. "Fascinating," Dr. Chen murmured, studying a holographic display of Austin's neural patterns. "The biochemical changes are far more profound than we initially thought. Austin, try lifting that medical tray." Austin complied, his eyes widening in surprise as the heavy tray felt as light as a feather. "That's new," he said, carefully setting it down. Cora, on the adjacent biobed, sat up suddenly. "I can hear the power conduits 3 decks below," she said, her yellow eyes wide with wonder. "And I can smell everything." Dr. Chen nodded, making notes on her pad. Enhanced strength and reflexes for Austin, significantly heightened sensory abilities for Cora. These findings will revolutionize both human and Nausicaan medical research. As word of their success spread beyond the station, Epsilon 9 faced a new challenge. The first signs came as blips on the long-range sensors, ships entering the sector, drawn by rumors of the human-Nausicaan compatibility. Commander Thraz's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention all personnel. We are implementing stricter security protocols effective immediately. All non-essential personnel are to remain in their quarters until further notice. Among the arriving vessels was a Ferengi trade ship, its captain's face appearing on the main view screen of Epsilon 9's command center. This is Daimon Brack of the Profitable Venture. We've come to facilitate this exciting new opportunity between humans and Nausicaans. Ambassador Reeves exchanged a wary glance with Commander Thraz. The situation was growing more complex by the hour. Ambassador, Thraz said quietly, Earth is sending reinforcements. Admiral Jonathan Hayes will be arriving within the day to oversee negotiations. Reeves nodded, his expression grim. Good. We'll need all the help we can get to navigate this mess. In the days that followed, Austin and Cora found themselves thrust into the spotlight. They were called upon repeatedly to participate in briefings, demonstrating their unique bond for an ever-growing audience of scientists, diplomats, and curious onlookers. During a rare moment of privacy, Austin turned to Cora, his voice low. How are you holding up? Cora's eyes met his, a mix of emotions swirling in their depths. It's overwhelming. I never imagined our experiment would lead to this. Before Austin could respond, Lieutenant Thara, the station's Andorian security chief, burst into the room. We've uncovered a plot to sabotage the negotiations, she said, her antennae twitching with agitation. A group of conservative Nausicaans is planning to destroy Dr. Chen's research. Austin and Cora exchanged alarmed glances. Grax! Cora growled, her fists clenching at her sides. The next hours were a blur of activity as security teams scrambled to protect the research lab. The confrontation came to a head in the early hours of the morning, with Lieutenant Thara's team cornering the saboteurs just as they were about to breach the lab's defenses. The incident created a rift within the Nausicaan delegation. Varrock, seeing the potential benefits of an alliance with humans, publicly denounced Grax and his followers. The internal conflict threatened to derail the entire negotiation process, pushing both sides to the brink of a diplomatic breakdown. It was in this tense atmosphere that Admiral Hayes arrived on Epsilon 9. The seasoned diplomat wasted no time in calling for a comprehensive conference involving all major stakeholders. As representatives from various species filed into the station's main conference room, Austin and Cora found themselves once again at the center of attention. Admiral Hayes approached them, his weathered face etched with lines of concern and curiosity. I've read the reports, he said, his voice low and gravelly. But seeing you two in person, it's clear we're on the brink of something truly revolutionary. The Admiral turned to address the assembled dignitaries. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed here is unprecedented. The potential for a human-Nausicaan alliance could reshape the balance of power in this sector and beyond. But we must proceed with caution and transparency. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room before settling back on Austin and Cora. That's why I'm proposing a formal, ceremonial demonstration of human Nausicaan compatibility. Witnessed by representatives from all involved parties, this event will serve as both a scientific demonstration and a symbol of our shared future. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Austin felt Cora tense beside him, her hand finding his in a gesture that had become almost instinctual. Admiral Hayes continued, Of course, the decision ultimately rests with our two pioneers. Mr. Prescott, Ambassador Cora, are you willing to participate in this ceremony? Austin looked at Cora, seeing his own mix of apprehension and tenacity mirrored in her eyes. They had come too far to turn back now. With a shared nod, they turned to face the Admiral. We'll do it, Austin said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. As preparations for the ceremony began in earnest, Epsilon 9 transformed into a fortress. Commander Thraz coordinated with both human and Nausicaan security forces, determined to safeguard against any potential threats. In the midst of the controlled chaos, Dr. Chen worked closely with Austin and Cora, monitoring their physical and emotional well-being. Remember, she told them during a final checkup, what you're about to do goes beyond science or politics. You're showing us all what's possible when we look past our differences. As the hour of the ceremony approached, Austin and Cora stood before the entrance to a specially constructed chamber. Through the transparent doors, they could see the assembled dignitaries, a sea of faces representing a dozen different species, all waiting with nervous excitement, Austin turned to Cora, drinking in the sight of her. In the short time since their experiment, she had become more than a research partner or even a friend. She was a part of him now, in ways he was only beginning to understand. "Ready?" he asked, echoing the question he'd posed before their first shared experience. Cora's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "Together," she replied, her voice steady and sure. As the doors slid open, they stepped forward, united in their dedication to forge a new path for their people. The chamber awaited them, along with the promise and the challenge of a future neither of them could have imagined just days ago. As the door slid open, Austin and Cora stepped into the specially constructed chamber, their hands still intertwined. The room buzzed with anticipation, filled with an array of dignitaries, scientists, and security personnel from across the galaxy. Admiral Hayes nodded to them from the front row, his weathered face a mask of calm authority. Dr. Chen stood nearby, her fingers dancing across a control panel as she prepared to monitor the demonstration. Austin took a deep breath, meeting Cora's gaze. Her yellow eyes held a mix of dedication and trust. They moved to the center of the chamber, where a raised platform awaited them. "Initiating sensors," Dr. Chen announced, her voice echoing through the room. As Austin and Cora faced each other on the platform, a hush fell over the audience. They reached out, their palms touching. The effect was immediate and visible. A soft gasp rippled through the crowd as Cora's skin began to emit a faint pearlescent glow. Her muscles tensed and relaxed, becoming more defined with each passing second. Austin felt a surge of energy coursing through his body, his posture straightening as if invisible strings were pulling him upright. "Incredible," Dr. Chen murmured, her eyes glued to the readouts. "Neural synchronization is off the charts." Austin and Cora began to move in perfect unison, their movements fluid and graceful. Without exchanging a word, they seemed to communicate through the slightest changes in expression or the twitch of a muscle. Suddenly, a commotion arose from the Nausicaan section of the audience. Zira, one of the female Nausicans, stood up abruptly, her skin taking on a faint luminescence similar to Cora's. Around her, other Nausicans stirred, the males sitting straighter, their eyes sharpening with newfound clarity. "What's happening?" Admiral Hayes demanded, turning to Dr. Chen. The scientist's fingers flew across her console. "It appears the effects are spreading to other Nausicans in proximity. Fascinating." As the demonstration continued, Austin and Cora's movements became more dramatic. Cora effortlessly lifted a heavy piece of equipment that had been placed on the platform, her enhanced strength evident in the ease of her motion. Austin, reacting to an unseen cue, performed a series of acrobatic maneuvers that would have been impossible for him just days ago. The audience watched in awe, conversations breaking out in hushed tones. Among them, Daimon Brack's eyes glittered with opportunity. He sidled up to Admiral Hayes and Ambassador Reeves, his voice low and persuasive. "Gentlemen, do you realize the potential here? Imagine the profits from marketing this as a medical treatment or even a recreational activity." Ambassador Reeves frowned, opening his mouth to respond, but was cut off by a shout from the platform. "Enough!" Dr. Chen's voice rang out. "We need to end this now." On the platform, Austin and Cora were visibly struggling. Their movements, while still synchronized, had become jerky and labored. Sweat beaded on Austin's forehead, and Cora's luminescent glow had taken on a feverish intensity. Medical teams rushed forward as Austin and Cora finally broke contact, both swaying on their feet. They were quickly ushered off the platform and onto nearby biobeds for examination. The chamber erupted into chaos. Admiral Hayes strode to the center of the room, raising his hands for silence. "What we've witnessed today is unprecedented," he began, his voice cutting through the din. "It's clear that we need to approach this situation with both caution and open minds. I propose the formation of a joint human Nausicaan research committee to study and regulate these interactions." Commander Krevak, the Nausicaan leader, nodded his assent. "Agreed. The potential benefits cannot be ignored." But not everyone shared their optimism. From the back of the room, Grax pushed his way forward, his face contorted with rage. "This is an abomination," he roared. "You would pollute our genetic purity for the sake of your cooperation? I will not stand for it. As Grax's supporters rallied around him, security personnel moved to intercept them. The room teetered on the edge of violence. In the medical bay, Austin and Cora lay on adjacent beds, exhausted but alert. Despite the chaos unfolding around them, they found themselves drawn into their own world, their newfound connection transcending the physical. "Are you okay?" Austin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cora nodded, her yellow eyes meeting his. "I feel different, stronger, but also connected," Austin finished for her. As they spoke, medical staff bustled around them, taking readings and muttering in excited tones about residual enhancements and lingering effects. Back in the main chamber, Admiral Hayes and Ambassador Reeves huddled with Commander Krivak and Vrock, the moderate Nausicaan leader. They spoke in urgent tones, aware that the delicate balance they had achieved was in danger of shattering. "We need to act quickly," Hayes said, his eyes darting to where Grax and his supporters were being contained by security. "This situation could escalate beyond our control if we don't find a way to address everyone's concerns." Vrock nodded, his expression grim. "The conservative faction will not be easily swayed. They see this as a threat to our very identity." As they debated their next move, news of the demonstration's unexpected effects spread through Epsilon 9 like wildfire. In the corridors and common areas, humans and Nausicaans regarded each other with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen approached Austin and Cora, her face a mask of professional concern, hiding her scientific excitement. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her eyes flicking between them and her datapad. Austin sat up slowly, testing his limbs. "Different," he said. "Stronger. More aware." Cora nodded in agreement. "The effects persist even without physical contact." Dr. Chen made a note, her brow furrowed. "We'll need to conduct more tests to understand the long-term implications. For now, I want you both to rest." As she turned to leave, Austin called out, "Dr. Chen, what's happening out there?" The scientist paused, her expression troubled. "It's complicated. Your demonstration has opened up a Pandora's box of possibilities and concerns. Admiral Hayes and the others are trying to navigate the political fallout." As Dr. Chen left, Austin and Cora exchanged a look of shared understanding. They had started this journey as strangers from different worlds, but now found themselves at the center of a storm that could reshape the future of both their species. Outside the medical bay, Epsilon Nam hummed with tension and possibility. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with challenges and potential conflict. But in that moment, as Austin and Cora reached out to clasp hands once more, a spark of hope flickered to life. A hope for a future where the barriers between their peoples might finally begin to crumble. Fall away, yet the challenges ahead were nowhere near the end. In the days that followed, Epsilon 9 became a powder keg of conflicting ideologies and simmering tensions. Humans and Nausicaans eyed each other warily in the corridors, the promise of their newfound compatibility overshadowed by fear and mistrust. Admiral Hayes and Ambassador Reeves worked tirelessly, huddled in marathon strategy sessions as they sought a way to salvage the situation. On the 5th day after the demonstration, Austin and Cora were released from the medical bay. Dr. Chen had run every test imaginable, confirming that the effects of their interaction persisted even without physical contact. As they walked through the station, they couldn't help but notice the sidelong glances and hushed whispers that followed in their wake. "We've become a spectacle," Cora murmured, her yellow eyes scanning the crowd. Austin nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing. We're living proof that this can work." Their conversation was cut short by a station-wide announcement. Admiral Hayes' voice echoed through the corridors. "Attention all personnel and guests. A summit to address recent events will commence in 1 hour in the main conference hall. All faction representatives are required to attend." As they made their way to the conference hall, Austin and Cora encountered Dr. Chen. The scientist's eyes lit up with excitement. "I was just coming to find you," she said, falling into step beside them. "The summit is our chance to present the full scope of our findings. If we can demonstrate the potential benefits—" "We'll do it," Austin interjected, exchanging a quick glance with Cora. whatever it takes to make them understand. The conference hall was a sea of tension when they arrived. Humans and Nausicaans sat on opposite sides of the room, with neutral species scattered between them. At the front, Admiral Hayes stood with Ambassador Reeves, their faces etched with grit. As Hayes began to speak, outlining the need for cooperation and understanding, Austin felt a familiar tingle in his palm. He looked down to see Cora's hand brushing against his. Without a word, they rose and made their way to the center of the room. "Admiral," Austin called out, his voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through him. "If I may, Ambassador Cora and I would like to volunteer for one final demonstration." A hush fell over the room. Hayes hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed, Mr. Prescott, but with caution." Dr. Chen rushed forward, hastily setting up monitoring equipment as Austin and Cora took their positions. They faced each other, palms hovering inches apart. "Ready?" Austin asked, echoing their now familiar ritual. "Together," Cora replied, her voice filled with willpower. As their hands met, the familiar glow began to emanate from Cora's skin. Austin felt the surge of energy, his senses sharpening. But this time, something was different. The connection between them intensified, growing stronger with each passing second. A gasp rippled through the crowd as the glow began to spread, extending beyond Austin and Cora in a shimmering field. The nearest audience members shifted in their seats, their expressions changing from wariness to wonder. "Incredible," Dr. Chen breathed, her eyes glued to her readings. "The field is affecting neural patterns in everyone within a 5-meter radius. It's fostering empathy, breaking down mental barriers." The effects spread through the room like a wave. Humans and Nausicaans alike found themselves experiencing flashes of understanding, seeing the world through each other's eyes. Cultural biases and ingrained prejudices began to melt away in the face of this shared consciousness. At the back of the room, Grax stood rigid, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. As the field washed over him, his eyes widened in shock. For the first time, he felt the full potential of human-Nausicaan compatibility, experiencing the harmony and strength it could bring. With a strangled cry, Grax pushed through the crowd, making his way to the center of the room. He stood before Austin and Cora, tears streaming down his face. I was wrong," he choked out. "This is not an abomination. It's beautiful." The room fell silent, all eyes on the once staunch opponent of human-Nausicaan relations. Grax turned to face the assembly, his voice growing stronger. "My brothers and sisters, I have been blind, but now I see. This gift, this compatibility, it is not a threat to our identity. It is the key to our future." As Grax's words echoed through the hall, Admiral Hayes stepped forward. His weathered face bore a look of cautious optimism as he addressed the gathering. "Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a crossroads. The events of the past days have shown us both the dangers and the incredible potential of human-Nausicaan interaction. It is time for us to choose our path forward." With a nod to Ambassador Reeves, Hayes activated a holographic display. It flickered to life, revealing a detailed proposal. "Before you is the framework for a human-Nausicaan cooperative initiative. This comprehensive agreement addresses the concerns of all parties while paving the way for a new era of collaboration and mutual benefit." As Hayes began to outline the key points of the initiative, the room buzzed with a newfound energy. The lingering effects of Austin and Cora's demonstration had created an atmosphere of openness and understanding, unlike anything the station had seen before. Commander Krivak, the Nausicaan leader, stood up, his imposing figure drawing all eyes. "On behalf of the Nausicaan people, I have listened to your proposal, Admiral, and I have felt the power of this compatibility with my own senses. We are prepared to move forward with this initiative." A cheer went up from the assembled crowd, humans and Nausicaans alike. As the details of the accord were finalized and the document prepared for signing, Austin and Cora found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Chen approached them, her face flushed with excitement. "We've only scratched the surface of what your connection can do. With your permission, I'd like to establish a dedicated research team to study and harness this phenomenon." Before they could respond, Admiral Hayes joined them. "Mr. Prescott, Ambassador Cora, your actions today have changed the course of history. We'd like to appoint you as official ambassadors for the initiative. Your unique bond will serve as a living symbol of what we can achieve together. As Austin and Cora accepted their new roles, the conference hall transformed into a hub of excited discussion and planning. Representatives from various species approached, eager to learn more about the initiative and its potential implications for the broader galactic community. In the midst of the commotion, Austin felt Cora's hand slip into his. They shared a look of quiet understanding, both aware that their journey was not nearly finished. As the newly appointed ambassadors of the Human Nausicaan Cooperative Initiative, they stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, their bond a testament to the power of empathy and cooperation in bridging the gaps between worlds.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.